I keep wanting my husband to figure out what was broken in him that allowed him to cross the line into an affair. He says he's talked to a couple of counselors and he's looked at his childhood and he says it was near perfect and he can't find anything. He says the state of our intimacy or lack of it made him vulnerable to an affair, so that's his reason. You've stated many times that the betrayed spouse in the marriage are never to blame. You also state that there can be things in the marriage that could make someone vulnerable. This seems contradictory. My husband says this vulnerability allowed him to cross the line, so he won't look any further into his brokenness. It feels like he's passing the blame onto the betrayed, to me. Could you please explain this further? A marriage, as far as I'm concerned, could take as much as maybe a third of the responsibility if you were to think, how much responsibility could the marriage take? And I believe that there are horrible marriages. However, I know that two people can be in a very lousy marriage and only one has an affair. So it can't just be the marriage that causes that. Sometimes finding out what makes someone susceptible is complicated. A third, I believe, is, a person's own childhood, the way they were initially sexualized, their first sexual experiences. There are many, many factors that can contribute to that. And I think if someone says their childhood was near perfect, then I also wonder if perhaps they have other issues. But the other third, so there's a third personal history, a third marriage. The other third, though, is culture. It's peer group. It's what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. So in other words, if a person is in a environment where other people are doing this or they're seeing a lot of television or other things where this is acceptable, then it slowly, I believe, erodes kind of the whole concept of why am I doing this to begin with. So the influences, what's happening in a person's life, the people they're around, the stories they're hearing also can, in an implicit way, give permission. But I also still believe that you can't take responsibility for his actions any more than he can surrender his agency and put his actions on you. We all have agency. We have the ability to choose how we respond, regardless of the situation. And to sit there and blame the marriage, or for you to even take on the blame, ultimately, you give up your right to choose. As Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our choice. We have a choice as to how we're going to respond and what we're going to do. So blaming somebody else means that he gives up the ability to be in control of his own life. And I hope he decides he wants to learn how to be in control of his life. Accepting the blame, feeling like, he's victimizing you. Also, you surrender your agency, your ability to choose how you're going to respond. The longer I work in this field, the more I believe it's not because of you. I'm not saying that you don't have things that perhaps you want to do better. I mean, you can look at yourself and say, is that the best I can do? Do I have issues I need to address? And if you're going to have a new life of meaning and purpose, you probably have to do those things. He needs to be able to figure out, I think, and take responsibility for his choices apart from his circumstances, and to figure out what made him vulnerable. I understand that's one aspect, but again, there's more to it as far as I'm concerned. And even if he's using that as a moral justification, it doesn't explain to me why you didn't do the same. He's got to look at that. Hopefully that helps cover it a little bit. That may be clear as mud. I feel like I was rambling, but It's a complicated topic.